The chapel was beautiful, but it felt like a lie. Gleaming pews, stained glass saints, and flower arrangements carefully curated for a wedding that wasn't born of love, but of numbers, margins, and silent agreements. On that humid afternoon in Emerald Bay, Amara stood at the side alcove of St. Lilian's Cathedral, clutching a borrowed veil with trembling fingers. She was 23, an orphan, and promised to a man she had met only twice, Tunde Obasi, the heir of a shipping empire and the son of her uncle's closest business partner. Her heart didn't flutter. Her knees didn't buckle from joy. The only thing that shook was her voice as she rehearsed one final prayer. Let this end quickly. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you're watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. She had never been asked what she wanted, not when her parents died in a road accident when she was 8, not when Uncle Dapo took her in like a tax deduction, and certainly not when he announced over breakfast that she would be marrying Tunde. This will secure our contract with the Obasi Group, he had said, tapping his calculator as if calculating her dowry. Be grateful. You've cost me more than you'll ever repay. Amara didn't speak. Nodding had become second nature, a shield against retaliation. Now, waiting behind the stone archway, she listened to the sounds of guests arriving, murmured greetings, the hush of silk gowns brushing marble, and the occasional laughter of men who had already had too much champagne. Tunde hadn't arrived, not yet. There were no bridesmaids, no mother to adjust her veil, no friends whispering encouragement. Just Uncle Dapo, 2 pews away, whispering into Chief Obasi's ear about land permits and delivery timelines. They didn't even glance her way. When Tunde finally appeared, 15 minutes late, reeking of luxury cologne and cheap gin, he didn't smile. He merely glanced in her direction, confirming she was physically present, then turned to fist bump his friends lounging at the back. The organist, unsure whether to begin, fumbled a chord before forcing out the processional. The ceremony lurched forward like a tired donkey, reluctant, mechanical, hollow. And when the priest, a man with soft eyes and worn scripture, asked, if anyone knows of just cause why these two should not be joined in holy matrimony, speak now. A pause. Then came the whisper. I do. It was barely audible, but in the quiet cathedral, it ricocheted like a bullet. Gasps, stiff necks twisting, eyes locked on the trembling bride. Uncle Dapo dug his nails into her arm. You will not ruin this. Do not disgrace me. His voice was low, but it sliced through her like a knife. Amara's lips parted, then closed again. Obedience, an orphan's only currency, reclaimed her tongue. The moment passed. The priest, flushed and confused, resumed the rite as though nothing had happened. Rings were exchanged, vows were recited, not from the heart, but from obligation. Outside, confetti spiraled in the breeze, masking the grimace on Amara's face. A photographer pleaded for a smile. She gave him one. A hostage smile. Proof of life. Tunde didn't even look at her when he said, "Let's go." She followed him into the limousine, the cathedral vanishing behind tinted glass. No one told her that this ride would be the beginning of a private prison. No one warned her that the man she had just married would become her captor. And no one, especially not her uncle, cared to know that this wedding wasn't a beginning. It was the end. The Obasi estate in Emerald Bay was everything a luxury magazine would worship. A modernist dream draped in white marble, ringed by trimmed hedges and motion-activated security lights. From the outside, it looked like a palace. But for Amara, it became a sentence without parole. The driver barely waited for her to step out before speeding off. Tunde didn't offer a hand. He strode through the front doors as if returning to a hotel suite he barely remembered booking. She followed in silence, her veil still clinging to her shoulders like regret. The doors closed behind her with a hiss, soft, final. The foyer was spotless. Not a single frame on the wall. Not a family photo, not a childhood memory. Just minimalist furniture arranged with surgical precision. Cold, impersonal. Tunde tossed his jacket onto the glass console and walked upstairs without a word. Their bedroom was a cavernous space with panoramic sash windows, 15 in total, all overlooking the lagoon. But Amara would learn quickly, those windows were not for her. That first night, she stood barefoot on the plush rug, arms folded. Tunde emerged from the bathroom, a towel draped over his shoulder, a scarlet silk nightgown in his hand. "Wear this tomorrow," he said. "We're meeting people. I can't have you looking like a donation drive." She nodded. "Thank you," she murmured, folding the gown as if it were sacred. Inside, it cut her like barbed wire. The days that followed blurred together. There was no honeymoon, no warmth, just silence and performance. Breakfast was a solitary ritual. Amara sat alone at the 10-seater dining table while Tunde read business reports on his tablet. If the eggs were too runny, he tossed the plate aside. If they were too firm, he accused her of sabotaging his mood. One morning, he found a smudge on the water glass. He smashed it on the counter. "Do you want the staff thinking you were raised in a barn?" he snapped. "I wasn't raised," she wanted to reply. "I was orphaned." Instead, she swept the shards in silence. Another time, she wore a mustard-colored blouse she had brought from her old life. Tunde stared for a full minute, then yanked it off her shoulders. "This color makes you look cheap." He didn't replace it. He just left her standing there, arms crossed over her chest as the AC hummed. Phones were forbidden. The landline was disconnected. The mobile he gave her could only call 2 numbers, his and the house manager's. She once tried to text the seamstress who had smiled at her during wedding fittings. The phone was shattered against the wall within minutes. Amara began to lose track of her own voice. Every "I'm sorry" sounded smaller, more foreign. She stopped saying her name out loud. It felt like it belonged to someone else. She started a diary, thin pages hidden in a Bible on the second shelf. She wrote at night, by flashlight. One entry read, "The stained glass saints at the cathedral watched me kneel beside a man who buys love in stock options. They said nothing, just like everyone else." Another read, "He calls me an asset in public. He calls me baggage in private. I married a vacancy wearing a man's suit." The windows, all 15 of them, became her obsession. Every evening, like clockwork, Tunde would walk from room to room, locking each brass latch with a slow, deliberate click. She counted them. 1, 2, 15. Click, click, click. He'd mutter, "Security is tight in Emerald Bay. Can't have strangers peeking in." But no one was looking in. No one even knew she was here. What he really feared was anyone seeing her trying to get out. Amara memorized the rhythms of his footsteps, light and rhythmic when sober, heavy and unpredictable when drunk. She learned that if the front door slammed hard at 11 p.m., he was in a Friday mood, dangerous. If he entered humming music, it was another woman's perfume she had to prepare for. She marked the days in the margins of her diary like a prisoner scratching tally marks into a cell wall. June 3rd, he snapped because the spoon was too shiny. June 10th, he said her voice could curdle milk. June 24th, he asked if orphans were even capable of love. Each entry ended with the same sentence, scrawled in cursive. "What is the price of silence?" She never wrote the answer, but she felt it, in every bruise, every night spent curled up by the locked windows, every dream that ended with her screaming in a house that didn't echo back. Outside, the lagoon glittered under the moonlight. Boats passed, laughter carried by the breeze. Inside, Tunde twisted the final latch shut. Click. It began on a Tuesday. Not the kind of Tuesday where the sun shines with warmth or the breeze feels playful. No, this Tuesday was thick with heat. The sky hung low, and the house seemed to hold its breath. Tunde was in the ensuite bathroom, water hissing behind the frosted glass. Steam coiled beneath the door like smoke from a slow-burning fire. Amara sat on the edge of the bed, palms sweaty, heart pounding against her ribs like a prisoner desperate for release. She had reached her limit. That morning, Tunde had thrown a full plate of egusi soup at her because it was too hot. The day before, he'd pushed her against the fridge for leaving a curtain slightly open. The day before that, he hadn't come home at all. Her skin was sore. Her hope was thinner than tracing paper. She reached for the couch cushion. Beneath it, hidden between foam and fabric, was a small flip phone she had managed to sneak past the housekeeper. It had no camera, no apps, just numbers. But today, it was everything. She dialed. 4 rings. 5. Then a voice. "Hello?" "Uncle, it's me," she whispered, barely able to say her own name. "It's Amara." There was a pause, followed by the faint rustling of paper. "Why are you calling during work hours?" Uncle Dapo's voice was clipped, irritated. Her lip quivered. I need help. It's Tunde. He hurts me." Silence. She pressed on, her voice cracking. "He locks me in. He hits me, sir. Sometimes I think he might kill me." The next sound she heard was a tusk, a dismissive click of the tongue. "A woman endures, child. Don't be dramatic." Her throat tightened. "But Marriage isn't meant to be perfect," he interrupted, voice sharpening like a knife against bone. "Men test their wives. You must stay valuable to him. This alliance is worth millions. You have a duty." "A duty?" she repeated, hollow. "To the family, to the deal. Stop behaving like a spoiled girl. Stay in your matrimonial home and be grateful your husband provides." The line went dead. She stared at the phone like it had betrayed her. She hadn't asked for rescue, just refuge, a voice, a crack in the wall. Instead, she got slammed shut. In the next room, the water stopped. The door creaked open. Tunde emerged, towel low on his waist, skin glistening from the shower, eyes narrowed. He saw the phone. Amara's hand instinctively moved to hide it, but it was too late. He moved fast. "What's that?" "It's nothing. You called someone?" She backed away. Please, just listen." His hand came down like a hammer. The first slap sent her spinning. The second caught her temple, turning the room into white noise. "Who do you think you are? Giving me instructions? Calling for backup?" She tried to crawl away, but he grabbed her wrist and dragged her across the marble floor like a rag doll. "You think you smart now, huh? Little orphan girl trying to ruin my name." Fists, feet, words soaked in alcohol and ego. "You should be kissing the ground I walk on." Her head cracked against the banister. The chandelier above them trembled with the violence of the moment, glass whispering warnings from above. Then silence. Tunde stood over her, chest heaving. He didn't say sorry. He didn't even check if she was breathing. He just walked upstairs, muttering curses and complaints, towels still damp against his skin. Amara lay there for hours. The pain wasn't just physical, it was spiritual. A crack in the soul, a quiet declaration from the universe: you do not matter. She tasted blood in her mouth. Her ribs burned with every breath, but she didn't cry. The tears had dried up months ago.
Eventually, as dawn began to smear gray light across the Persian rug, she pulled herself up. Her knees wobbled, her feet slipped, but she made it. She wrapped herself in a faded wrapper with an anchor print and tiptoed out the back door. Her shoes were locked away in the wardrobe, but she didn't care. Her feet were raw, but adrenaline numbed everything. The driveway stones scraped her soles. Emerald Bay slept on, unaware or unwilling. She walked 6 blocks to the main road. Rain started, first as mist, then as a torrential wall. She passed cars. None stopped. She reached the wooden iron gate of her uncle's townhouse. 2 security guards looked at it with a mix of confusion and suspicion. Her hair was plastered to her face. Her lip was swollen, her eye nearly shut. I need to speak to Mr. Dapo, she croaked. They radioed in. 10 minutes passed beneath the biblical downpour. Then he appeared, robed in silk pajamas, holding a golf umbrella. His first words were, "Jesus, Amara, neighbors will talk." "I have nowhere else to go," she pleaded. "Just one night, please." "You chose him," he snapped. "That's your cross." The umbrella shifted slightly to keep him dry as she stood soaked. "Go home." The gates closed, the locks clicked, and thunder cracked like a gavel from the heavens.
The sky was already bruising purple when Tunde summoned her to the living room. The air was heavy with the scent of rain and finality. She came quietly, hands still damp from stirring egusi soup in the kitchen. On the center of the floor sat her old Ghana bag, the same one she'd arrived with months ago, worn from years of orphanage transfers and hand-me-down travel. Beside it, a small pile of tattered clothes, her faded wrapper, 2 threadbare blouses, and the slippers that had once belonged to her late mother. "What is this?" she asked, voice low. "You're leaving," Tunde said, without flinching. Amara blinked. "What?" "You heard me. Get out." "Please, where will I go?" "That's not my problem," he snapped, already grabbing the bag and shoving the clothes inside. "You think you can cry to my father and remain here? You think you matter? You don't." He didn't pack any of the clothes he had bought her, only the rags, only the past. Amara's throat tightened. "Tunde, please, don't do this. Just one night. I'll be gone in the morning." But he was already walking toward the door. "Take only what you came with," he said, flinging the bag out onto the front porch. She followed, tears mixing with the first raindrops falling from the sky. Tunde dragged her by the arm. "Let's make it official." Outside, the rain began to thicken, slashing down in diagonal streaks. She was shoved into the back seat of the SUV. The driver wasn't their regular. This one didn't ask questions. The car pulled away from the estate, past the guarded gates, past the glittering lagoon-front properties of Emerald Bay. They drove in silence. No destination was given. No goodbye was offered. 30 minutes later, they turned off the paved road and onto a dirt path riddled with potholes and trash. Amara's pulse began to race. She recognized nothing, only the stench. Then she saw the sign. Adaku Municipal Waste Site, no dumping after 6 p.m. They stopped. Tunde stepped out, flung the passenger door open and yanked her out. "This," he said, pointing at the garbage mounds, "is where you belong. Trash among trash." She stumbled, bare feet sliding in the mud, knees colliding with sharp rocks and broken glass. Her bag landed beside her with a thud, contents spilling. She looked up, hair soaked, vision blurry. "Tell my father thank you for the disgrace." Tunde spat, slamming the door. The SUV sped off, tires screeching in the rain. Silence. She didn't scream. She didn't chase after him. She just sat in the filth. The rain soaked her to the bone. Her fingers trembled. Her legs ached. She tried to gather her bag, but even the act of lifting her arm felt monumental. Nearby, flies buzzed over decomposing waste. A rat darted between two bins. She turned her face to the sky, rain pelting her eyelids. A thought crept in. Maybe dying wouldn't be worse. Then came the sound. Soft. Curious. A kitten. It approached her mewing softly, tail wet, paws muddy. She reached out with shaking hands, stroked its fur. It purred, vibrating gently against her palm. "We're both unwanted, aren't we?" she whispered. The kitten curled against her side. It was the only warmth she'd known in weeks. She closed her eyes. Minutes passed, or hours. She wasn't sure. Then, headlights. A black SUV rolled slowly along the edge of the dump. Its beams cut through the downpour like divine searchlights. It stopped several yards away. A door opened. From within stepped a man, tall, composed, wrapped in a spotless white caftan that billowed in the wind. He carried a large black umbrella. He didn't look away when he saw her. He didn't recoil. He walked deliberately, avoiding puddles until he stood beside her. The kitten scampered away. She looked up, afraid he'd shout, or laugh, or judge. But he didn't. He crouched. "Who did this to you?" His voice was low but steady. Her lips parted, but no words came. He studied her face, swollen lip, bruised cheek, soaked clothes. Then, gently, he extended his hand. "I don't know what you've done, but no one deserves to be thrown away like this. No one." She stared at him. Something behind his eyes. Empathy, not pity. "Come. You're not staying here." She hesitated. His white caftan flapped again in the wind, now dirty at the hem. But he didn't seem to care. He helped her to her feet. "Can you walk?" Barely. Her knees buckled. He steadied her. He looked back toward the car. "Open the back," he called to the driver. Then to her, "You're going home with me." Inside the car, warmth wrapped around her like a second skin. The scent of leather, the low hum of jazz on the speakers. She sat still, shivering. Her hands clutched the tattered bag. The man turned from the front seat. His face was composed, but his eyes betrayed concern. "You don't have to say anything," he said gently. "Let's get you dry and fed." She tried to respond. Failed. Only a single tear escaped, tracing her cheek, cutting through grime and blood. Not from pain, from something stranger. Safety.
The drive to Obuda Heights was quiet. Rain tapped softly against the car windows as the city blurred by. Amara sat in the back seat, arms wrapped tightly around her damp bag like a child with a life raft. Her hair clung to her face, her clothes soaked through. Every bone in her body throbbed, but she didn't speak. She barely breathed. The man who rescued her didn't push for conversation. He sat in the front passenger seat, head slightly turned as if keeping silent vigil. The driver maneuvered carefully, respecting the stillness. As they entered the gated community of Obudu Heights, Amara's eyes widened despite herself. She had never seen such beauty up close. Tall white walls, sculpted hedges, security lights like halos, and a massive gate that opened with quiet deference. She half expected someone to stop the car, to ask why a drenched woman from a dump site was being brought into paradise. But no one did. The guards bowed. The housekeeper opened the main door without hesitation. And no one, not one person, looked at her with disgust. At the door stood a woman in her 50s, round-faced, warm-eyed, wrapped in a floral wrapper and apron. She gasped when she saw Amara. "Jesu," she whispered, stepping forward. "Oga, what happened to her?" "She was thrown out like garbage," Kwame replied quietly. "Help her clean up, feed her, let her rest." "Yes, sir," the woman said, already guiding Amara gently inside. "Come, child, you're safe now." The bathroom was a dream. A clawfoot tub, fresh towels, lavender-scented soap. Mama Taye, gentle and humming soft Yoruba hymns, helped her peel off the soaked clothes. Amara flinched at every bruise. Mama Taye didn't comment. She only whispered, "Sorry, oh, you're safe now. No one will hurt you here." The bath water was warm, clean, healing. For the first time in weeks, Amara's body relaxed. After the bath, Mama Taye dressed her in a soft cotton nightgown and led her to a guest room the size of her entire former duplex. The bed was high and soft, with fresh linen and a bowl of food waiting on the nightstand: jollof rice, fried plantains, grilled chicken. The smell made her stomach ache with hunger, but she hesitated. "Eat," Mama Taye urged, placing the tray on her lap. "Tell her Oga must eat." Amara took a tentative bite, and then she wept. The kind of weeping that comes from somewhere too deep for words. A release, a surrender. Not because she was hurt, but because for the first time in so long, she didn't have to be afraid while eating. She wasn't going to be insulted for chewing too loud. No one was going to lock a window or throw a glass. She was just safe. Mama Taye sat beside her, holding her hand, humming softly until the sobs turned into slow, tired breaths. Later, when Amara lay down, wrapped in clean sheets and the scent of lavender, her body curled naturally, as if trying to remember what comfort felt like. She slept. Not the shallow, hyper-vigilant sleep of survival, but the deep, full-bodied sleep of someone who finally believed she wouldn't be hurt during the night. The next morning, sunlight streamed through open windows, actual open windows. Birds chirped. There was no shouting, no footsteps stomping through the hallway, no locked latches. She sat up slowly, ribs still sore, but lighter. Her diary was gone, lost in the chaos. But for the first time, she didn't need it. She went to the window, staring out at the courtyard garden where flowers bloomed in every color imaginable. Then a soft knock. Kwame entered, dressed in a gray kaftan, holding a mug of tea. "May I?" She nodded. He set the tea on the table. "You slept well?" She hesitated. "Yes, I think I did." He offered a soft smile. "No one will touch you here, Amara. Not without your permission, not ever again." She nodded, eyes misting. He didn't sit, didn't invade her space. He simply said, "I have work, but Mama Taye is here. Eat, rest, walk around if you like. This is your home for as long as you need."
As he turned to leave, she called out softly, "Why?" He paused. "Why are you helping me?" He looked at her, really looked at her, not through her, not past her, but at her. "Because when I saw you in that rain, I didn't see trash. I saw someone who had been discarded by people who never deserved her. And I knew, if I walked away, I'd be no different." She lowered her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "No," he said gently. "You don't owe me anything." And then he was gone. Later that day, she walked barefoot across the cool marble hallway, touched the windowsills just to make sure they weren't locked, sat in the library, read a page, sipped tea. She saw herself in the mirror, still swollen, still bruised, but still here, alive. Not a ghost, not a possession, not trash. A person. And for the first time, that felt like a beginning. The days passed gently at Obudu Heights. There were no screaming matches, no broken dishes, no locks clicking into place each night like emotional padlocks. Only the quiet hum of a house where peace had taken root. Amara began to reclaim herself. She started waking early, not out of fear, but to water the garden. She folded towels with precision, not because she had to, but because she wanted to feel useful. She laughed quietly with Mama Taye in the kitchen, learning how to prepare yam porridge with crayfish and bitterleaf, her laughter sounding foreign like a song returning after years in exile. Kwame noticed but never imposed. He didn't hover. He didn't test her boundaries. He simply showed up. For tea, for dinner, for shared stories beneath the mango tree in the courtyard. And slowly, without either of them realizing, something sacred began to grow in the silences between them. One evening, as the sun painted the sky in gold and coral, Amara brought Kwame a tray of food under the gazebo. "Vegetable soup," she said softly. "Pounded yam, grilled tilapia. I wasn't sure how spicy you like it." Kwame took a bite, then paused. "This is incredible." Her cheeks flushed. "Thank you," she replied. "I used to cook, before." He looked at her. "And he still treated you that way?" She shrugged. "When someone doesn't value you, it doesn't matter what you do." He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he placed his fork down, folded his hands, and looked her in the eyes. "I value this, and I value you." She blinked. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was aware. That night, they sat by the koi pond beneath the stars. A gentle wind played with the hem of her wrapper. The scent of orange blossoms floated in the air. Kwame shared pieces of his past, how he sold brake pads at 17 in the chaotic markets of Onitsha, how he lost his mother at 16, and how building his business had been a way to survive grief. "I built walls, not just houses, but in here." He tapped his chest. It felt safer. Amara nodded. "I understand walls." He looked at her, then said something that stilled her heart. "But healing doesn't live inside walls. It lives in people, and I think you've started to crack mine open." She didn't respond. Her eyes brimmed with tears she couldn't quite explain. 3 weeks later, on a warm morning filled with bird song and the smell of roasted corn from a nearby vendor, Kwame made pap and akara for breakfast. Amara sat across from him under the garden canopy, her scarf tied loosely around her hair, face still bearing traces of old bruises. Kwame watched her stir her pap slowly. Then, as if unable to wait any longer, he set his cup down and took a breath. "Amara," she looked up, "I need to say something, and I don't want you to feel pressured,
but I can't keep it in anymore." Her heart skipped. He reached into his pocket. "I never planned this, but you've changed something in me. You remind me of who I was before the world hardened me. You make silence feel safe. You bring peace into rooms where I only used to chase performance." He opened the small velvet box. Inside, a gold band, simple, elegant, unassuming. "Would you let me build a new future with you?" Her hands flew to her mouth. "You want to marry me?" "Yes," he said, "not because I rescued you, but because I see you, because I respect you, because I love you." She stared at the ring, then at him, then down at her own hands, scarred, worn, trembling. "I've been treated like trash for so long, I don't even know how to feel like someone worthy." He stood, took her hands gently, knelt. "Then let me remind you every day." She cried then, silently, freely. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Kwame, I will marry you." And in that moment, in the heart of Obudu Heights, surrounded by mango trees and memory, a woman once thrown away like garbage was asked not just to be someone's wife, but to be his treasure.
2 months after the night she'd been dumped like trash, Amara stood before the same duplex in Emerald Bay District. But this time, she wasn't weeping on a welcome mat. She was the owner. She wore an ivory blouse tucked into an emerald skirt, her natural hair pulled into a graceful bun. In her hand, an envelope embossed with gold, legal documents bearing her name. Kwame had purchased the property discreetly. The former Lebanese owner seeking to offload the duplex had accepted the offer without question. And in an act of quiet restoration, Kwame signed the title over to Amara. "You don't need to go back," he had told her gently. "I know, but I need to see it through. Not for revenge, for closure." Inside the house, Tunde was pacing. The eviction notice had arrived that morning. The property had been sold. He was given 30 days to vacate. "Sold to who?" he barked at the property manager. The man shrugged. "The new owner requested discretion, but she's agreed to meet you to discuss the handover." Tunde arrived late to the scheduled meeting at a real estate office in Jibana town. His shirt was wrinkled. His face bore the exhaustion of months filled with rejection, debt collectors, and silent phone lines. He stepped into the conference room and froze. There, seated with poise and calm, was Amara. She didn't rise. She didn't gloat. She simply said, "Good afternoon, Tunde." He stared. "You? You're the buyer?" "Yes." His hands trembled. "How?" She didn't answer that. Instead, she slid a second envelope toward him. "You have 30 days, but I'm giving you 14. You'll find a relocation allowance inside. Consider it a gesture of decency you never offered me." His jaw clenched. "You think this makes you powerful?" "No, I think it makes me free." He scoffed. "So this is about revenge." Amara shook her head. "If I wanted revenge, I wouldn't be sitting here. I'd have sent the police or posted your hospital receipts online." Tunde looked away. Silence grew thick. Then she added softly, "Tunde, I forgive you. But your cruelty no longer has a place in my life. This chapter is closed." She stood, gathered her bag, and walked to the door. Just before exiting, she paused. "One more thing," she said, glancing at the now faded family photo on the wall. "You told me once that I was lucky to have you, but I realize now luck should not feel like dying in slow motion." And then she was gone. That night, Tunde sat on the floor of the duplex, surrounded by half-packed boxes. His power had been cut off that afternoon. The walls echoed with silence, the same silence he once weaponized. He stared at the envelope on the floor, the one bearing Amara's name, and whispered to no one, "I could have had a queen." But now, he was just another man without a kingdom.
Weeks after reclaiming her voice and her future, Amara stood on the stage of a sunlit garden in Calabar City. The banner behind her read, "Grand Opening, Grace House Initiative, a safe haven for women in crisis." She wore a simple white gown, her hair wrapped in a bright Ankara scarf. Beside her stood Kwame, his hand gently resting on her lower back, a quiet pillar of support. In front of them, women, donors, survivors, friends, government officials, even reporters. But Amara wasn't thinking about the crowd. She was thinking about a cold welcome mat, a rainstorm, a locked door, and a version of herself who once believed silence was nobility. She stepped forward, took the mic, and breathed deeply. "There was a time I believed suffering in silence made me strong, that to be a good woman meant to endure, to carry pain with dignity, to keep secrets no one deserved to hear. But I was wrong. Strength is not measured in bruises hidden or tears swallowed. It's measured in rising again and again, not just for yourself, but for others who haven't yet found their voice. And that's why Grace House exists, so that no woman ever has to sleep outside in the rain, so that no one ever has to wonder if they matter." She paused. The audience was silent, many holding back tears. Amara looked up at the sky, the same sky she once prayed under, soaked and discarded, then back at the crowd. Today, we break that cycle. With beds, with therapists, with lawyers, with teachers, with love. No more, "What will people say?" No more, "Stay for the children." No more, "You're lucky he picked you." Grace House will remind every woman, you are not trash. You are treasure. Applause broke out like thunder. Mama Tay wept openly. A survivor in the front row faintly whispered, "Thank you." Kwame kissed Amara's forehead, and together they cut the ribbon. In the months that followed, Grace House became more than a shelter. It became a movement. Amara funded a vocational training center nearby, baking, sewing, tech skills, digital marketing. The first woman trained, Wura, a former taxi driver fleeing violence, now the official transport coordinator for the shelter. One weekend, Amara hosted a self-worth seminar in her old neighborhood. Young girls with bruises under makeup listened intently as she said, "Obedience without dignity is not virtue. Silence is not peace. Survival is not enough. We are meant to thrive." She gave out scholarships that day. Later, a viral headline captured the moment. As from beaten to builder, the woman who rose from the dust to build grace. But Amara refused all interviews. "Let my work speak louder than my wounds," she told Kwame. And so it did. Meanwhile, Tunde watched from a small viewing center in Sulurere, a borrowed phone, a cracked screen, a bitter cup of palm wine. His name wasn't mentioned, but his shame screamed in silence. 6 months after that unforgettable garden speech, Amara stood once again in court, not as a victim begging for justice, but as a woman ready to close a chapter, finally, on her terms. The High Court of Calabar City processed the divorce swiftly. Tunde didn't appear. No lawyer, no statement, just silence. His final act in a long play of cowardice. The judge looked at Amara, eyes gentle. "You are now free," he said. And for the first time in years, she smiled, not out of relief, not even triumph, but out of deep internal peace. Outside, Kwame waited, dressed in a gray caftan, holding a single sunflower. "It's done," she whispered. "Now we begin again," he replied. "Starting over, the right way." Amara chose to mark her freedom not with a party, but with purpose. She converted the rental income from the duplex, her former prison, into monthly funding for the vocational center. Every stitch sewn, every cake baked, every code written by survivors carried a piece of her redemption. One of the graduates, Amina, whispered during graduation, "I didn't just learn a skill here, I remembered who I was." That, more than applause, was Amara's reward. Meanwhile, Tunde was last seen at a roadside bar on the outskirts of the city, unshaven, wallet thin, eyes hollow. A local newspaper headline flickered on the TV. "Grace House expands to Abuja. A movement grows." He looked away. Regret didn't shout. It whispered, "You could have had a queen, but you treated her like trash." Elephant. The final scene. One Saturday, Amara returned to her childhood street, not to mourn, but to inspire. She addressed a group of girls seated on plastic chairs under an awning. Some had bruises. All had questions in their eyes. "I used to think silence was strength, that if I endured long enough, I'd be rewarded. But real strength is walking away when your soul starts dying." They clapped. Some cried. And Amara? She smiled. The kind of smile that builds bridges. The kind that says, "I made it out alive, and now I'm lighting the way for you."